It's my pleasure now to introduce our final panel session of the conference and welcome our wonderful panel guests, who are Christian Elverforce, MD of Volvo Cars UK and patron of the Automotive 30% Club, Rebecca Clark, Sales Director at Auto Trader and one of our actual Inspiring Automotive Woman of the Year 2020, Stuart Miles, MD for UK and Ireland CDK Global and patron of the Automotive 30% Club, Paula Cooper, Director Consumer One, Toyota GB and Inspiring Automotive Woman of the Year 2019, Claire Wright, HR Director of Jardine Motors Group and winner of our Inclusive Leader Award, Sarah Cox, Marketing Director for Volkswagen Passenger Cars UK and another 2020 Inspiring Automotive Woman Award winner, and finally, representing the world from outside of automotive, Fiona Daniel, award-winning CEO and founder of diversity and inclusion consultancy, FD2I. So welcome, everybody. So the purpose of our session is simply to ask our guests to answer the questions that our audience have submitted throughout the day, based around the topic of how can we start to change the game. So if you haven't already submitted questions, please do so. So I'm going to start with a question that's come in for Stuart. So Stuart, do you have the critical mass required to achieve the changes that CDK Global need to make? And what is the business priority for CDK to achieve the culture change?
Sure, okay. Yeah, great question, and I think it links to a talk that was held yesterday. So for us, and hopefully I'm understanding the question correctly, but I guess it's for the critical mass. Have we got the right number of supporters to mobilise that change in our business and our broaden that out to across automotive and for me, of course, I'd say yes. I think we have, but you are going to get doubters in any organisation with where we are going forward with this change. So for me, I think it's critical that this has to be a collective effort. It needs to be led from the top down, and it needs buy-in from everyone within the business to make it work. So the sooner you start, the better it is. And then, and only then, when it starts to build that momentum, will you have the right number of supporters to actually go forward with that change. And just very briefly, just to give you one example of our journey and why I think that we are in a position to really make a powerful statement and move forward with this, is not just the work that we do with schools and conferences, but really it's embedded in our culture. I know that when we attended the conference last year, attended with our VP of HR, Kath Sibold, and it's no coincidence that a year later we've got a 10-point plan which is around diversity, which is embedded as part of our HR strategy. And I agree that not every idea will work for every business, but we need to be pretty open with that and make sure that we move forward as a collective effort.
Thanks, Stuart. So I'm going to move on now to ask a question to Rebecca Clark. And the question is, so for those that actively survey employees, are responses broken down and analysed according to identifiable groups? And if yes, is this beyond gender?
And I'm really sorry because we have a hopper next door to me and it's typically just gone off at this awful moment. So sorry for that noise. If you can hear it, it will stop. So I think in answer to your question, Julia, yes, it absolutely does go beyond gender. At Auto Trader, we have our kind of central people hub. And within the people hub, we ask people to update in terms of gender, sexual orientation, ethnicity, religion, and various areas. Disability is another one, which then enables us, of course, when we do things like our annual employee survey to understand the makeup of the organisation. and equally, you know, to understand what's it actually telling us. So it helps inform, I guess, some of the decisions that we might then go on to make, depending on what the findings are through the different, you know, surveys and things that we kind of complete throughout the year. It's a big part of what we do, and, you know, as part of diversity within gender, I guess, you know, it's really important for us to have that level of visibility. But as always, it's what we do with the information that really counts.
Thanks, Rebecca. And I've got a question that I'm going to put to Paula. This is from Penny. She obviously heard you talk about the Women on the Verge programme, and she would like to know, how have your male colleagues responded to the Women on the Verge programme?
Thank you, Julia. It's an interesting one, actually. We've had a variety of reactions, I guess, as you would expect, because not everyone's the same. But I think on the whole, really positive. I think it's really part of the company being really overt and clear and transparent about its ambitions and the way that we want to develop and broaden our type of people, our profile of people. And this is something that will encourage that development. I think the other key thing around all of this is sort of Women on the Verge has been really great for identifying and encouraging a number of our female talent, but actually it's part of a much broader change in our approach to recruitment, to development, to nurturing. And therefore, of course, everybody's benefited from that. So the way that we discuss our talent, our potential, and identify means to retain them and get the best out of them is something that the guys have benefited from as much as the ladies as well. And so I think the other thing I would just say is it's an interesting one how the men have reacted, because what we've found is that if you look at your stereotypical male in the motor industry, if we were to consider them, then we're not just missing out on lots of female talent potentially, we're also missing out on lots of male talent. And so we really have taken this approach to be as attractive as we possibly can be in terms of employment and people development, to ensure that we get the best of people within our company. We stretch them, challenge them, develop them, and they become the success and the future of our company.
Yeah, just to add to that point as well, and it goes back to my first point. I think you're right, and I said you got some detractors about this, and it's not just male detractors. You get some female detractors within this as well that said, you know, surely by focusing so much on the gender imbalance, you are therefore excluding people. And I'd just like to put an end to that myth. We're not. What we are trying to do is, because we still all agree that we need to recruit on the right people for the right roles. Okay. All we're doing is making sure that the pool of talent that we recognise and identify is a lot broader than it actually is today.
Absolutely.
So what we're trying to achieve here is really promote and move forward with the best opportunity and the best people to work alongside, and then and only then can we all move forward.
Yeah, thanks, Paula, and also for adding to that, Stuart. So kind of adding on to that point, I'd like to bring Fiona in, and because it's related really. So, what would you say to people who accuse inclusive leaders of jumping on a diversity bandwagon for performative reasons or positive PR?
Interesting question. So, I'd be saying to the person that's making the accusation, not the question, not the person asking the question, but the person that's saying, well, you know, to an inclusive leader, you are jumping on a performative bandwagon. My question back to them would be, well, how do you know? How can you say that they are jumping on a performative bandwagon if they are being inclusive in everything that they are doing, from how they talk about it at the top of the organisation, how they are supporting others, their teams, in ensuring that they are being inclusive, in ensuring that to Stuart's point, that we are reaching as wide a pool as possible. If they weren't doing any of those other things and they were just doing the lip service, that's performative. If they are doing everything else and it is felt, seen and heard, not only in just those actions, But actually, in moving towards those outcomes, you're starting to see the change, you're starting to see that culture shift, you're starting to see that representation happen. So for me, I think it's more about, in answer to that question, it's supporting our inclusive leaders and actually also leaning in to your own inclusive behaviours and ask yourself, what am I doing to be more inclusive in what I do?
Yeah, great response, Fiona. And I'd like to just put the next question to Sarah, who I know has an inclusive leader in the form of Alex Smith. And it's related to the fact that obviously you've been appointed to a very senior role in Volkswagen Group. So do you think that your appointment to a senior role has made a positive difference to the career goals of other women in your company?
I certainly hope so. From the sort of feedback and the comments I had when my appointment was announced last year, it certainly felt like I was having a positive influence, and it was seen as a positive story and encouraging others, and that's very much, you know, what I wanted to be about. I only ended up in the industry because I went to a graduate fair and approached another manufacturer's stand, and the guy on the stand said to me, "It's a very male-dominated industry, love," and tried to put me off applying and taking the application form. Now, to me, that was a red rag to the bull at the time. However, you know, I look back on that and I think that is so terrible. You know, this person put a barrier right in front of me there and then. And okay, it's 20 years plus ago, and you'd like to think that wouldn't happen to anybody now. But that's, you know, I think what's really important is that doesn't happen, and that we're all fighting to make sure that nobody else sees that barrier at the beginning of their career. And therefore, telling more of my story, progression from working in a dealer network in various different roles into a manufacturer, again across multitude of roles, from sales manager to training manager to marketing across 3 brands. I think what it's showing is the diversity of jobs and opportunities there are in the automotive industry and then with the Volkswagen Group, and that we're interested in people and what they bring to a role and transferable skills. And you can have a really, you know, diverse career, and you can work to any level that you want to as well, however high you aspire to go or not. And that's the story I want to tell and see as a positive role model. And that's why it's important to me now to sort of, you know, step up and be that role model where I can, and mentor people and get involved in development and conversations, and just give back a bit, really show my personal story, my vulnerabilities, and that we can all work together to make that change and make sure no one else has that terrible experience I had at the beginning of my career.
Yes, luckily, because I know the story, it wasn't Volkswagen Group, was it? It was another brand.
No.
Yeah, and it very much echoes the message of the masterclass that we were just listening to from Fiona, Paula and Rebecca about, you know, being senior women in the sector. You have this you know, a need really to lift others as you rise, and to be that role model, and to not you know, see that as a problem or something that you want to avoid, I think.
Yeah, I love that expression, lift as we rise. I think it really encapsulates it, and I wish that maybe on reflection I'd had more of that earlier on in my career, to help me, to give me a bit more self-confidence, belief early on, and to nudge me through. And again, it's all about making sure that we can do that and give opportunity to people at the beginning of their careers now as well, and later on in their careers too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to bring Claire and Christian in now. And this is a question from Julia Philpott. And she says it's a challenging question. And anyway, she coaches a lot of women, and she notices that they still have many, many more responsibilities in the home, being principal carer, etc., than their male counterparts. This is often a factor that can hold women back. So what role can organisations play here to help women achieve equality across their whole lives? So I'll put that to Claire first, and then maybe Christian, if you can come in.
Yeah, thanks for that. And I think I spoke a little bit about this on the panel, but I guess one of the good things to come out of the pandemic is that it's enabled us to look at work differently and how you set organisations up. And instead of saying, you know, and put, because I think often females put barriers in place for themselves, and often, you know, as from a valid point of view. However, I think now organisations with more flexible working and being able to work more flexibly can help and aid take one of those barriers away, where people are saying, I can't do that because I can't be in the office 9 to 5 or 9 to 6. You know, I think, but what organisations need to do is to truly listen to females about what is the issue that they face. And instead of listening and nodding head and saying, oh, that's all very well, we can't do anything, really listen and try and come up with solutions that work for that person so that they are enabled to have a good balance. You know, I mentor a lot of females in and outside of the industry, and, you know, no matter how senior they are, there's still always this issue about the burden that is put on women on having to try and be everything to all people, and you know, it's impossible. And organisations have a responsibility to support females in that way, and it's no longer acceptable to say you have to be present in a business, or you can't possibly work flexibly. It's utter rubbish for me, and I think organisations that are still thinking like that are going to have some real big issues moving forward, because people just won't want to work for them.
And I would like to add that we are in the worst of period, as well as we're in a complete lockdown with a lot of school teaching at home and the childcare. So I think what we see and the way we are embracing the way of working right now, we need to utilize, and we need to keep that model when we're back to some sort of normality as well. I think full flexibility will stay. I'm quite convinced that it will do it. I think also that we need to embrace different ways of sharing parental leave, for instance, which we have worked with for the last 2 years, which has been quite successful by topping up the payments. And then also I think we must utilize the technique that we see and that we can use today. And we have a lot of people that still, I would say you can either go into furlough, you can take your vacation where we are topping up, or you can actually work full flexible as it looks right now. So we have some of the team that starts already 6 o'clock in the morning, then they need to do homeschooling in the afternoon, etc. And you must do it. And I think that's also things we need to look into when we restart, how we should be able to do flexible working full. So we were just assigned for a new office for our new financial company just the week before the lockdown last year, and we canceled that. So now we are linking everyone into the same building where we have the NSC sitting. So we're actually adding almost 60 people into the same building where we were full before, and we're changing the way and the setup of the business, taking away all the fixed desks and have full flexible working, and all the meetings should be on Teams. So you can actually both be in the office or you can work from home, which I think is part of the future. We need to discuss the commuting, even though we are in the automotive business. We need to discuss whether it's actually sustainable to go on a two-hour commute every day if you are just sitting in the office and having no collaboration for that day, for instance. And then I think you should be able to work from home and do that instead, to save the commuting and be able to pick up and leave kids at school as well. So that's things I think the lockdown have helped us to develop, and I think we just must stick to it and continue the development, because that will also be a recruitment factor and a success factor for recruitment. I think it will be some of the basics going forward when you're recruiting good and great talents.
And Julia, sorry, just building on one final thing on that, I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all solution. No. People have challenges. It's not, some people don't have children, they have other caring responsibilities. And I think it's about, and it goes back to my original point, you have to really listen and figure out what's right for that individual. And then I think what happens is when people have confidence that things are being done, then more people stick their hand up and say, actually, I'd like to do this now, because there's still we've just been running a load of listening groups with our colleagues that are working from home now, because we made a decision to disband of our head offices permanently, and those colleagues that work from home now are working from home permanently. And interestingly, there is still a little bit of resistance from people that they don't want to switch off or take a break because they think, they're going to be told off, which isn't the case. But it's human instinct to think that you're a failure if you're not online 24/7. And it goes, again, it goes back to what I said at the beginning. You have to really listen to people and understand what's right and what's the right solution for them. And as organisations, we have a responsibility to support in that solution.
And sorry, just to add on that, because it's something that's really close to my heart as well, is actually what we need to be cautious of to that, constant availability by being online, Claire, is actually that health and well-being that comes with that. And I was speaking to a female that's within our industry who cited, the mummy guilt is what they're saying, is that they are at home, supposed to be homeschooling, but also supposed to be working. So their confused child during a period of time where they are there physically, but not available, just leads them to, having those guilty thoughts. And therefore it's our responsibility as business leaders to ensure, to both Claire's and Kristen's point, that we are flexible down to the individual, because everybody will have a different circumstance that needs to be built around. I just wanted to put that health and wellbeing bit on top of that.
And can I just add something just very quickly on top of all those 3 points, because they're absolutely spot on. And I would also add, in terms of the organisational support, it's also about the messages that we are also sending in terms of the culture, because I think, again, people have a perception, whether that's real or perceived, that the culture is saying that I must always be switched on. So we also need to be, as leaders, be very explicit and vocal in linking that health and well-being aspect, but also encouraging our people that you're not always switched on, and there are things that you can do. And one of them I would recommend, if you don't already do it, is also empowering individuals to take a little bit of that control back. So actually having on their email signatures when they work, how they work, so that, again, if I send an email to somebody, I'll be saying in my sign off, this is how I work when I work. And you might get an email out of these hours that's not right for you, but it's right for me. You don't need to respond. I'm not expecting a response back, etc., etc. So I think, again, it's also those signals that we are sending both verbally and explicitly through the organisation as inclusive leaders, that it's okay. It's fine. So the burden isn't always on the person, just to add on to all those 3.
Fiona, I'll just add.
Sorry, Rebecca, go on.
Rebecca,
thank you. No, I was just going to add to Fiona's point there. I think we've tried our best to be quite explicit around encouraging people to take time, and that's not just like in lunches, the traditional breaks, but additional time as well. And in some cases, it's manifested where certain teams have all said, let's all go out and get some fresh air, clearly in their local area. Over a certain time frame, they took pictures of local, beauty things that they've seen or not so beauty things they've seen, and shared internally, on our we use a Slack channel. And it's just been a nice way of, again, bringing people together and just being open, I guess. It's definitely facilitated more openness between colleagues, and, to Claire's point, confidence to just be honest about, how they're feeling and what help and support people might need. So, yeah, totally agree. Sorry, Christian.
I think.
No, I forgot what I should say. Actually, I think you did it quite well.
Paula, I think you had a point to make.
I think they're great points, because it's something that we've been looking at as well. And if you sort of look at it logically, then if people are working different hours, so for example, as Christian said, starting at 6, then you shouldn't be expecting an email response to something that you sent at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, as an example. So I think it's us also becoming much more tolerant as a company and a culture as well. And maybe the sign off that Fiona is suggesting is something that would just help explain that and explain to people, and also manage their expectations. I think the other side of the coin that we should also not forget is that actually being in an office is better for some people. So, you know, if they don't have a study that they can work in, or if they don't have decent broadband, or if they need to be away from the four walls that they might live in, then we should also ensure that we're providing that safe environment for them to go to the office when things are appropriate to do so. And again, I think it's just that sort of broadening of approach and consideration. So it's not one size fits all. So it's not everyone in the office, but likewise, it's not everyone at home. And just making sure that we're able to facilitate that. So there are still some benefits and efficiencies and improvements around that. But it's making sure that we, everyone within this sort of meeting, has got the preparedness to think broadly about how we can get the best out of people, and therefore what environment, tools and equipment we need to give them to get the best out of them.
Thanks for that, Paula. So I'd like to bring Sarah back in, actually, because we have another question linked to the fact that you faced a barrier when you first tried to show interest in the sector. But I'd also like Claire to answer this from a retail perspective as well. So the question is, how would women watching who don't have a motor trade background find out about any vacancies that you actually have? Where do you promote your vacancies?
Sure. So we use LinkedIn really heavily. In fact, it's our main source for external recruitment. Not only putting all the vacancies on there, but we encourage our own team members to promote those vacancies on their own posts and pages as well, to extend the network that they reach out to. We have a careers-based website, so vwgcareers.co.uk. And not only do you find the vacancies on there, but there's lots of information about the company, how we're constructed, the 5 brands brought together, but also then about the culture of the organisation, including our values, details around the E&Gs and all that sort of stuff as well. So there's a real hub to go to understand sort of what organisation you'd be joining and the variety that is there. We also try to reach into our own team members' networks as well. So, asking people to refer peers in, people they know from previous experiences and jobs, and that really helps bring people in that are non-automotive as well, and we find that really helps in the more specialist fields as well. So that might be IT or HR, marketing, just to name a few. But so people recommend people to come in and join automotive, and of course we benefit then from those experiences and a different pool of skills that they can bring to our organisation as well. And we do work with third-party sites, so like Working Mums as well, so where we can sort of position our flexible working and part-time jobs and stuff as well. So there's quite a few touch points, and definitely we rely on our own network to spread the word and reach wider as well.
Yeah, building on what Sarah says, we do all exactly the same. I think everyone does pretty much the same thing in terms of reaching out. And I guess just to add to that, in terms of our career pages as well, we purposely get people talking about their roles and their own stories to, I guess, still continue to, as Sarah said in her, when we were on the panel together, people still have a poor perception of this industry. But when you actually get people telling their own stories, that actually helps, take away some of those misperceptions. But in addition, we do things like partner with organisations like Retail Week. So we get an audience with different people out of motor where we talk about our industry. So I guess that would be the only other different thing that we do over and above what Sarah's mentioned. But I think it's really important in everything you do, what we do on Instagram, it's all about your brand. It's not, it doesn't always necessarily have to say we've got a vacancy. It's about how you continually have that always on message about who you are as an employment brand, and how you continue to use different channels to promote that.
Sorry, I'm jumping on everybody else's question. I apologise.
I'll give you one soon, Stuart.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I was just going to say, look, I think women are well represented in certain areas within automotive. That's marketing HR is what we have found through some of the research that we've done. I think that therefore suspect that many choose their roles because more of the nature of the work rather than because it's in the automotive sector. And I think there is a traditional perception that some male employees choose automotive due to an interest in in cars or engineering or technology, but that not need be the case, I guess. So for me, the role or the sector isn't as crucial as maybe the job itself. So on that question, for those that are looking to break into automotive, I think a key thing to remember is that there's a wide range of sectors within it that offer highly relevant and transferable skills. So, automotive is diverse and can be diverse, exciting, and always evolving. So really, I guess a big part of it is how we advertise that, not more so as to us being pushing back on that now.
And just building on what Stuart said, I mean, when we recruit people now into the sort of showroom, we've changed job titles. We're purposely actually asking for people that haven't got motor trade experience, because it's about serving the customer. So, some people listening might cringe when I say that you don't have to like cars, you just have to love customers, because that's what people are there to do. We've got at one of our sites today, and we've got a gentleman actually who's just joined from hospitality. In the first 4 weeks, has sold 5 cars, never sold a car in his life, but he loves customers. Again, we attracted those people by purposely not talking about you have to have motor trade experience. You have to be clever about what you do and more purposeful about how you attract different people.
Just building on what Claire said, when I was in the network as a sales manager, and my top selling salesperson was a female who'd been an air hostess before, and because it's all about the customer and observing and listening to what the customer wanted, and she was fantastic, and she outsold all of her peers, and she worked on a part-time basis as well and still outsold them as well. So she was a real gem. But it was great to just bring somebody in with a completely different viewpoint. And take the core skills of that individual, really.
And I must say that applies to all the levels. So from my perspective, in our senior management team, half have automotive experience because it's necessary to do the operations, and half other industries outside the automotive sector, which is also helped as a team to develop. And as a manufacturer today, we need to be more retail than ever, and we need to take care of consumers in a different way from what we used to do as well. So it's important to embrace that it is not impossible to take on a senior level as well in the automotive sector.
Okay, thanks for all of those fantastic comments on that one question. So I am now going to put one for you, Stuart. Do you think that enough automotive leaders understand the business case for gender balance and inclusion?
In simple, no, because that's why we're here. And therefore there's lots of work to be done. I'd reference that there are many stats out there that if you are a business leader and you're questioning why you should even be looking at that, then go and do some research now, because I think innovation will be vastly improved through a diverse a network that you work with. I think it's now more important than ever in the current climate that a diverse workforce with fresh ideas and the ability to challenge each other is vital. We know that businesses that are more diverse, making changes now, are more likely to be successful in the future. There's stats out there from McKinsey that tells us that companies with a diverse staff are better positioned to meet those diverse customer bases. So if you're a business leader, you need to know that cash flows of diverse companies are, I've got a stat somewhere, hang on, here you go, they're 2.3 times higher than those of companies with more monolithic staff. So in essence, diverse companies are 70% more likely to capture new markets than organizations that do not actively recruit and support talent from underrepresented groups. So that's why it's important, I guess. And finally, Christian mentioned it about the consumer. Yeah. My point is that we live in a diverse society. So why would your business not reflect the society that we are actually serving? It's for me, it's a no-brainer.
Perhaps Fiona, sorry, I was just going to bring Fiona in about the the added benefit also of it being a diverse women, diverse gender balance as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking, you must have read my mind, Julia, because I was sitting here thinking, well, I buy cars. I also connect with people who work in the industry in different ways, who look like me, who don't look like me. So I think it's really important when we're talking about all of this good stuff that we're also thinking about gender much more broadly. Because again, when women look up in your organizations, they want to see women that are white women, that are women of color, that are women with disabilities, parents, carers, the full length and breadth of difference. So it is really important that when we're looking at, particularly the bit that we were talking about before about attraction, we need to think more broadly. We need to fish in much bigger ponds. There are much bigger ponds in addition to LinkedIn that we need to reach diverse women. They don't all look in the same place. We need to be as broad thinking as possible, because what tends to happen is we can often focus very heavily on one group of women and go very heavily on that attraction piece. But what we don't really do is broaden that out and also think about the retention and the development of those women when they get in, and also those women that are already in, still trying to navigate, still trying to move up. And the more that those individuals don't see people that look like them, then all these efforts that we're talking about make no difference, because we haven't connected with them in the first place to actually include them in everything that we're talking about, to say, actually, this narrative that I'm talking about around inclusion means you, and you. At the moment, in most cases, I see across different client bases, not often, but still seeing this piece that we are talking to one aspect of woman. And that's just, it's not great. It's good in one sense, but we need to do a lot more and get better at making that difference. And the one quick thing I would add was around something else popped in my head around the great points that Stuart was making as well around the business case. And I think the other aspect that we often need to consider is that for some business leaders, not all business leaders, sometimes even understanding that business case can be a bit of a challenge, because for them, they will be thinking, but it's worked for me. What I'm doing now has been quite successful. So what's the issue? I've got a great team. They're performing. They're doing what they need to do. I'm hitting my sales. They look like this. They do. Why do I? So it's building on that business case, but actually making that business case more pertinent to them and really getting people to really think about it from their point of view, as well as the outside stats and the internal stats. It's, what's the difference? What's the benefit? What difference does it make for you? If you're doing this now, how can you enhance it? It's not taking anything away. It's actually making it better. So how do we make it better? I think it's just about, sometimes, which I do a lot, is just flipping it on its head.
Thanks. Bex, did you want to add a point?
It was just building on Stuart's response earlier. I think certainly, attending different networking events over the years, etc. One thing that seems to stand out is often people know it's important to focus on diversity, and diversity within gender, but they just struggle to know kind of where to start. And you tend to see a difference between businesses that take action and businesses that don't. And I think, again, like you said, Stuart, that's why we're all here today, to try and help support, encourage each other. But you can never forget, just taking ownership and taking action is kind of the difference between what leads on to success and what doesn't. And then just listening to Fiona there as well, I think, again, from an Auto Trader perspective, in more recent years, we've been even more focused on diversity within gender and intersectionality, and how, diversity within gender comes to the fore. And I think, when you look at the people you've got in your organisation, and it's like they can really help by giving people voices to support, be it recruitment policies or whatever. It's just kind of, using the people that we've got in the business as well as people outside to just be smarter, be stronger, and just be more aware of you know, the direction in which we're really committed about moving towards.
Thanks for that extra point, Rebecca. So we've had this question in several different forms, and so it's for, I'll put it to Paula, but if Christian and Sarah also want to respond. And it's with regards to really the role of the OEM in terms of manufacturer, in terms of encouraging the retailers to also become inclusive and diverse and have gender balances. And is there things that the manufacturer can do to encourage them? So if we could ask Paula first.
Okay, thank you, Julia. Absolutely, there are things, but I think just as the way that we're trying to approach it, and everyone within this panel as well, in terms of it being a cultural change and not sort of a top-down or a directive, I think we have to do a really good job as far as engaging with our network in helping them to understand that there are changes that need to be made. And some of them are on this journey already, some of them are part of this club too. But I think on the whole, it's working with them and sort of linking into what Stuart was saying too. It's understanding that there's a business case around this. So even if it doesn't naturally spring to your mind, the chances are that you'll be looking at commercial performance, and there is a business case around this. So it's not just the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do. But that aside, some of the practical things that we've been doing for a while now is supporting our retailers in terms of things like speakers for schools, going into schools and engaging with local communities, not to necessarily wave the flag about overt inclusion or diversity, but just to make sure that we're broadening our appeal. Because by broadening our appeal, we are naturally ensuring that there is more diversity and more inclusion. So it becomes something that people are much more used to, and they think differently about the automotive industry, because whether we like it or not, and whether we think that we're not part of that reputation, we are. And it's something that we do need to work towards and try and shake off. So with the retailers, we put those programs in place. We will go and support them too, so that there is this joined up approach to what the automotive industry is about, and it extends people's understanding as to what roles that they could have or what careers they could have with us. I think the other thing around that is that we have a fantastic opportunity right now when you look at the changing nature of our industry, the roles, the opportunities, the skills that we would offer and require are much greater than they were previously. And so we are naturally appealing to a broader group of people with different talents and profiles. But within that, there's also a demand for those people within our business. So it's something that I think we continue to work on. We've also done some stuff with retailers in terms of their recruitment approach. So going into schools and developing our reputation and our appeal, not just for Toyota, but for the industry as a whole, really. But then also some real practical stuff around how, where, and when they recruit. So who is it they're looking for? What is it they're looking for? And where do they look to find those people? Similar to what we've done in a way as an OEM, is making sure the language that you're using is not immediately putting certain people off, but actually is hooking more people into you. So making your language, your tone, and your reach much more open, friendly, and therefore attractive.
Thanks. And maybe Christian, have you got anything to add about?
No, I think that to a point, you can never put targets on diversity and inclusion, but you can show direction. And I think that is what you need to do. And I think it's also, as Fiona mentioned, it's also all about the culture. And you as a retailer, you need to bring the culture to the consumers. And we need to mirror the consumers, whether you are online talking to a customer contact center or actually visiting a retailer to get knowledge about the car you are interested in. And I think we are just scratching the surface still on diversity and inclusion. That's something we need to develop forever and continue to develop because it's so important. And to know about the consumer and the way the consumer behaving and which consumer we are targeting, we need also to embrace that we are actually employing the consumer, that are the mirroring side of the consumer driving it. So the employees will also be handled as consumers in one way, and I think that's also an important take. I think what we can do as an OEM is to show how we would like it done, and to maybe, I think we have some really good retailer groups as well that are ahead of us, but we need to also be in the front line together with some of the more transforming retailer groups we have out there, and by that you can actually attract more consumers when we'll see what we are doing is true, is the real consumer caretaking, and yeah, that's it. So no targeting, embrace the culture, help the retailers to develop culture, and get the employees that mirror the consumer, and then I think we have part of the success. But it's a continuing and ongoing story that we need to live with forever, I think, in a positive way.
Sarah, thanks.
Sorry, I was just going to say, so we do very similar things as Paula was saying at Volkswagen Group, in particular, with the Inspire program, working with schools and things like that. I think the other thing is about leading by example and showing the representation in our own teams to the teams that are facing into the retail and dealer networks as well. So field teams is one of the pools of roles that we look at in terms of our data, in terms of gender balance. And looking to have that that ratio right there as well, and of course the same in the leadership teams. You shouldn't be coming to a conference and only seeing a male board stand and present at the national conferences. You want to see that representation there, so it's about leading by example as well.
Thanks, Sarah. And now we're coming to the end, but I want to leave the last word really to Claire. I'm going to bring Claire in, and there's a couple of questions both for you. And the first is, with all the focus on women in Jardine, how do you make sure that men don't perceive that there are less opportunities for them? And also, when will we see the retail network have 30% of their heads of business being women?
I'll take the first one first. I mean, I think if you could ask any, any individual at all in our organisation, are we, do we make men feel excluded because we're not including them in any promotions? Absolutely not. Actually, I've spoke before, Jardines is an inclusive organisation. We've still got a long way to go across all areas of inclusion because we've really focused on gender over the last couple of years, and we've refreshed our strategy on that. But, actually it's just about, it's what, I think Stuart mentioned it before, that it's about the right person for the job. So there's never any, and I've certainly never heard it in my 6 years here, that people say, well, why she got the job, I could have done it. Actually, it's the opposite. I think we actually have some really great male ambassadors and people that wave the flag for our females to help encourage them, because again, we still have to give some women those nudges to say, come on, you can do this job. And they've got, often they're mentored with a male to help them do it. So I think it's all about transparency and what you're trying to achieve. And, we've been working on this for the last 6 years. And even at the very early days, I'd never had anyone complain to say we felt, they felt excluded and we were just focusing on women, because people can see people's capability. So, fortunately, I've never seen it as a problem because we are transparent about what we're doing. And we don't just put women in jobs to achieve target. It's about capability. And then on the second bit, I think there's still a long way to go on that. I think, interesting, yesterday we were having a conversation about one of our divisions, but this is great because people are proactive in that, we do quarterly succession reviews, and, in one of our divisions, we haven't got as many females in the sales department compared to some of the other, like business I'm here today, actually out of the 10, 8 are women and 2 are males. So, and actually the question was asked, we've got to start doing more. And I think, I spoke about on the panel, it never stops. You have to keep going. And I just think, and I think perhaps the accelerator that's different to maybe a year ago comes back to the original question that we started with, is that, there's a perception if you're head of a business, you're in, you do 70 hours a week and, et cetera, but that's not the case anymore. And I think hopefully by removing that barrier of a perception of you have to be always on, will also encourage that, that bench to grow, because your women aren't saying, I guess women aren't automatically excluding themselves because they feel that they can't do it because they can. We've only got two heads of businesses, and one, Hayley Keaton, who's won one of the awards, which was great, but and Victoria Walton won last year. But we just need more. We need more of it, and again, it just keeps. You have to keep going with this, and I don't know when it's going to change fully, but I think everyone has a responsibility just to keep it going and keep encouraging women to rise to the top.
Great, thanks, Claire. And of course, we do have a goal of 30% of key leadership roles, which of course the head of business is, to be filled by diverse women by 2030. So let's hope that we get there. Let's focus on achieving that. So we're out of time. Thank you so much to everybody for a fantastic contribution there in the panel session. And thank you to the audience as well for all those great questions. I'm sure you'll agree there were some challenging and really insightful questions as well. So a big thank you to all our panel guests, Fiona, Christian, Rebecca, Stuart, Paula, Claire and Sarah. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we've now reached the end of our conference. I hope that you found it interesting and informative, and that it will motivate you to start to make a difference in your own organisations. Please do take a moment to complete the feedback form so that we can evaluate the impact of the sessions, and do also share your thoughts on social media using the hashtag Auto30ClubConf. A huge thank you goes to our patrons Christine Elverforth, Dr. Astrid Fontaine, Dax Gupta, Catherine Fires, Stuart Miles and Nia Williamson for their fantastic support and advocacy for the club. I'd also like to show my appreciation for my wonderful Gaia Innovation team, Nicola Thompson, Danielle Humphreys and Sophie Oak, for all the hard work they've done this year in very challenging circumstances, and for the amazing achievement of digitising our activities. And a big thank you goes to the sponsors of those activities: Toyota GB, Volvo Cars UK, Jardine Motors Group, CDK Global, MEPC and the University of Buckingham. We'll also add Marshall Motors Group as our sponsor of Inspiring Automotive Women Day later this year. Thanks also to the members who participated in our panel sessions and masterclasses, and our guests Fiona Daniel, John Amici OBE, Jessica Goitner and Molly Q Ford. I'd also like to thank the team at our conference sponsor Salesforce and their agency JD Marketing for helping us to make this event happen. My book that accompanies this conference, Change the Game, The Leader's Route Map to a Winning Gender Balanced Business, provides deeper insight into the subject matter covered over the course of the 2 days. I wish I could have covered more content, but we just simply didn't have the time. The book is an easy-to-follow 6-step guide with practical advice, solutions and case studies. There are also chapters on the business benefits of balance, inclusive leadership and why we now have a burning platform to force change. I explain how to slay the dragon of positive discrimination by dispelling negative myths and replacing them with positive legends. And I outline how to overcome barriers and handle resistance through using a compelling 5-minute pitch to inspire your team to take action. I also reveal what both men and women can do to create gender balance, and how building inclusive organisations can lead to you finding your true purpose. It's important for you to be aware that by being an inclusive leader and advocating for gender balance and diversity, and creating an environment in which women will thrive in order to get business success, you're also doing just what society needs. You will inspire the next generation. More women will fulfil their career potential. More men will fulfill their carer potential, and more people will be treated equitably and with dignity. The book is published by Practical Inspiration Publishing and will be on general release in all good bookshops and Amazon on March the 8th, but can be purchased now via the Automotive 30% Club website at a special conference discount. So our conference is over, and now it's time for you to change the game. Mark Benioff, the CEO of our conference sponsor Salesforce, said, I firmly believe that in the future, equality will be the key to unlocking a company's full and sustainable value. That doesn't mean it's easy to achieve, but those who fail to try will be on the wrong side of history. So be on the right side of history and follow the route map to building a winning gender balanced business by implementing the 6 steps to success. So goodbye and good luck with implementing your plans to change the game.